with Nia from NABSS, just to show this particular film. I'm not a pharmaceutical person, I'm not a lawyer or anything like that. We're simply showing films. But we do want to have a conversation about this piece today. So really, for about 20 minutes, half an hour, what we'd like to do, if possible, is have a conversation. And it's just going to grow organically. It's not going to be structured in any particular way. And if you are specialists, if you come from any particular field, either in chemistry or or the pharmaceutical industry, it'd be nice to hear your voice. But I do want to get from anyone that's here what your immediate reactions are based on what you've learned. Oh, I've got to just mention also, please donations for showing this film today. It's absolutely free. It's cost the organiser some money to put this on.
Yeah, it's cost £120.
It would be great if you could put some money towards the donation box. So, question, I think there's a mic going around at the back. What is your immediate reaction to what you've seen in this particular film?
If you want to speak, put your hands up if you want to speak.
Thanks. Hi. Is this on? Okay, please. Hi, my name is Shana, and I am a writer and a blogger. My blog is called Ancestral Energies, and I recently blogged about this film. I saw it about, a year or two ago, and it upset me so much it took me a long time to write the blog. But one of my initial reactions was that drugs have saved millions of lives, and they're continuing to save millions of lives, and we also need to be looking at other forms of healing as well. There are people who are teaching people to use their body's natural healing energies to overcome HIV and AIDS, and we need to be doing that a lot more so we're not so dependent on the pharmaceuticals. And another reaction is that as African people, we need to be working together because, the attitude of a lot of people in the States, and I'm from the States, so I can say this, that a lot of the attitude is that America is the only country, right? They're basically, once you go beyond the borders of America, then you're basically in limbo somewhere. There's no other countries and there's no other people. And we really need to be raising awareness of the need for us as African people to work together. I think as Africans, we can't afford to have that attitude.
So we go this lady here who had her arm.
Yes, thank you. My immediate reaction was, there's no doubt this is a very powerful film, and I've been waiting for it to come back. I missed it the first time that it was shown. I think our people back home need to be aware of what this is. I've got a lot of people from my background who think that, our government isn't doing much to help us. People need to know what the background is, what the trouble is here. I think this film here, if it were distributed or shown in parts of Africa through DVDs or other means, that would help people. It would make people aware of how the pharmacy industry operates in the world. So, beginning from today, is there a chance to have this put on DVD, or is it patented again?
I actually Googled it today. So not Google. I went on Amazon today. You can actually buy this online. So it is. You can purchase it, and you can distribute it to some of your friends and family as well.
But only for private viewing.
Only for private
If you
viewing.
show it publicly, you have to pay a fee to the organisation who made the film.
Patented.
Yeah. Copyright.
Someone else?
Okay, well, my immediate reaction from this is that, it is actually, I am upset, but, this is just the result of, we're just reaping the effects of capitalism. And I find that with capitalism, it is very much about withholding information. I didn't know that you know, the cure for the treatment of HIV/AIDS could be manufactured so cheap, you know. I wasn't really aware, I was aware that there was a cure and that it was a private sector, but I wasn't aware that it was it could be made so available and so cheaply. But this also just reinforces that the only sort of answer and solution to sort of going toe-to-toe with capitalism, you know, is to basically educate ourselves, you know, and, you know, sort of dismantle this whole concept of gatekeeping, which has, you know, dominated the lesser people from sort of advancing and, you know, making good of ourselves. So I think it's more important to, you know, educate ourselves, like you have stated, you know, sort of engage more in natural treatments and knowing our bodies so that we can sort of help heal ourselves and sort of prevent ourselves from falling into these diseases and hence becoming hostages to these racists. Because let's not beat around the bush, these people are racist, you know. This is, you know, there was no point, there's no real reason in sort of stopping that access, you know, other than racism and money.
I think money being probably one of the biggest factors in that. We have another point to be made over there.
Okay, my first reaction towards the end was signing that agreement was why did the government of those countries sign that agreement? Why did those governments sign the agreement? I mean, what would have been, I have to say, the punishment if they, can you hear me?
Just need to hold it here.
Okay. What?
That's it.
Yeah, okay. What would have been the punishment if all those countries hadn't signed that agreement? And this is what I can't understand. Why were they held hostage? I mean, didn't they have the freedom to say no? What would happen if they said no?
The countries we're talking about, you're referring to being African countries or outside of Africa?
Sorry, the global, I mean, what was the agreement they had to sign at the end? TRIPS, yeah. So why did they all, I know the sanctions, but at the same time, all those different countries couldn't have come together and say, we're not doing it. If they had said that, what would have happened? That's my first thought. So, I mean, I probably missed something, but I didn't hear what would have happened if they had signed, if they had disagreed. And, go ahead.
I don't think you missed anything. I think, you know, the sanctions was probably one of the biggest things that they said, you know, if you did start to create genetic, what do they call it? Generic drugs, the sanctions alone would cripple Africa more than what it's doing at the moment.
Right, that brings me to my second point. I fear that this is something like this, not necessarily to do with pharmaceuticals, that's been happening for centuries, where for hundreds of years, where they have been bullied into doing what the West want them to do. So my thought on that is, why not have their own organisations where they develop, you know, do their own research and so forth and develop their own, rather than waiting for somebody else. I am a great believer in don't put your hands out to other people because, you know, you're at their disadvantage. And something that my mother always used to tell me is that never rest yourself on somebody's eyelids because if they blink, you'll fall off.
If someone's heard that, that's great. For me, it's really interesting. The first time I watched this, I remember the immediate thing that jumped out to me is that India were making it themselves. Okay, and I thought to myself, well, why isn't Africa? Surely we must have chemists in Africa as well. We must have, you know, entrepreneurs who want to fund, you know, the manufacturing of self-aid. of films. And so why that's not happening in Africa, I don't know.
Oh, it is happening. That's when you find people get assassinated, laboratories get blown up, or if the government wants to back them, you suddenly get a military coup and takes over the whole country.
That's right. That's right.
There's plenty of scientists in Africa. I know about 4 who had cures for AIDS, and they've all disappeared.
And leaders. And leaders.
And actually, one of the brothers, he was in Uganda. He had a cure for AIDS. He went to a village. An elderly lady was dying. Literally gave her days to live. He gave her his tablet. She was like walking down the village. Everybody bowed to him like a king. The IMF instructed the Ugandan government to shut him down. Now, this is not the WHO, the World Health Organization. This is the World Banks told the Ugandan government to shut him down. The banks. And the other ones, there's 2 in Kenya, another one in South Africa. They've gone missing and their research has gone missing.
Yeah, can I just add to that as well? Colonel Gaddafi was going to put some...
Sorry, he's next. Sorry, he's got
Okay. No, I just want to add to what you said, brother. Thank you
Just
for saying
add
that. I
to
want
what
to
the
add
point.
to that, which is that Colonel Gaddafi was going to put some amazing amount of money, his own money, into the African Union to help African countries become independent, and look what happened to him.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to address your sister's point. You were talking about why can't they actually come together and actually sort something out for themselves. If you look at if you look at how the IMF, the World Bank, and all these international organisations work, they work in a way which is specifically designed to cripple African countries financially, economically, politically. So that is why they cannot come together, because basically they are controlled financially, and they are. You've heard of something called SAP, Structural Adjustment Programs. They're what the IMF basically forced African countries to take in terms of finance. And if you look at, there's a documentary called Life and Death in Jamaica. In Jamaica, before Jamaica in the 70s, their debt was about 400 million. The IMF came in, forced them to take on these structural adjustment programs. In 10 years, their debt went up to 4 billion. To the point where they were importing things that they actually produced themselves. And this is a lot of countries, this is all over the countries. So you have to understand how the global system works.
Yeah.
That's the reason why it's very kind of, I understand what you're saying, it's very easy to say why can't they come together, but if you're actually crippled and basically, it's almost like you're chopping someone's legs off and saying run. That's basically, it's almost like that analogy. So you have to kind of understand how the world economic system works. And like the brother says as well, if you do have someone who actually comes along and has a particular solution to a thing, or they'll just,
Yeah, I still believe that that you're talking about individuals.
it's not individuals, it's
It's
international.
international, but I don't know, maybe I'm just being over optimistic that there's great things that can be done because the together is not strong enough, or something else I will back down in certain respect where they don't stand strong enough, I don't think anyway.
It's easy to say that when
Okay.
you have to understand
He's got the mic. He's got the mic. Okay.
Okay, sorry, let's go.
I think South Africa is explored in this film, but it maybe not in enough depth, and it might kind of allude to what you guys are talking about. Thabo Mbeki's government, Thabo Mbeki himself actually refused to acknowledge that HIV and AIDS was as big as an issue as it was during the time in South Africa. So I think one of the problems is, and South Africa is a really good example because they adopted a neoliberal kind of model when the ANC took power and the fall of apartheid. And it's really, again, it's related to the IMF and the World Bank. But that revolutionary movement was felt, and I made a documentary about this, was felt to have been co-opted by the kind of international forces that be, as opposed to being, and that's why so many people celebrate Mandela as being like this peaceful kind of leader because he turned over peacefully, but the cost of that, many people would argue, was that actually these policies were taken under by the new ANC government. So, when I was in South Africa, I went to a township and met a woman with HIV. And it's even worse than this documentary paints because the woman, they could get free treatment, but she couldn't afford to travel to the places to get the free treatment. So it's really quite bad because, and obviously the government in South Africa is partly responsible by adopting these policies and the same as that.
My point is that, yes, looking at this film, it's a very tragic situation that, you know, a lot of people have got AIDS and they're not able to afford it. But how much work is actually being done in terms of prevention, because drugs can cost however much they like and people can get the drugs, but if people keep then getting the AIDS, then it's like carrying a bucket with a hole in it that you're just going to get back to square one. So I come from Zimbabwe, for example, where a lot of the men are promiscuous, they believe in polygamy, they don't want to use condoms, etc. They treat women as sexual objects, etc. And if those kind of mindsets continue and are not changed, then in terms of the long-term change or spread of AIDS, that's just going to continue. So yes, we can scapegoat pharmaceutical companies as much as we like. In the film, there was the one example of the Indian woman who got married and her husband gave her AIDS, knowing full well that he already had AIDS. So yes, we can blame the pharmaceutical companies, but amongst ourselves, the countries we come from, the families we come from, etc., our friends, etc., how much work are we doing amongst ourselves or trying to promote the education on what AIDS is about, how to prevent it, monogamous relationships, that sort of thing.
No, it's a great point. Does anyone else have anything to add on top of that? Because I think it's a brilliant point.
Sorry.
To add or to keep going?
You're next.
Yeah, hi. My point isn't to sort of continue on that path, but first of all, I think it's great that there's so many people here who sort of have an interest in what's currently going on. The thing that jumped out for me though was the message of change, and I definitely think there's something going on at the moment where we're sort of attempting to pay attention to what's going on out there. This sort of highlights one part of what's going on and how things are kind of sort of controlled, and I think the message behind it is that us the people have a chance to make a difference here, to kind of take our attention from all these things that are there to sort of distract us from what is actually going on out there. This is an issue. There are loads more. Let's kind of pay attention and make change.
No, that's very true. I mean, to see so many people here on a Saturday evening, I'm a massive Arsenal fan. I've been watching my phone right throughout the screening to find out what the score was. Last count was 2-2 in the events tonight. But yeah, I think there's been a massive sea change over the last few years in terms of the black community, people trying to become more aware of what's going on. I think this particular documentary is very powerful because it gives you a little bit more insight into the industry, the pharmaceutical industries, and how much power they actually have over governments. You know, we often talk about how governments are corrupt, but in what way? Who are the puppet string holders? And it's amazing to find that, you know, GlaxoSmithKline and Pfizer, all these massive companies that we tend to, you know, I don't really do drugs. I very rarely take paracetamol, but you know, these companies that are behind the production of these drugs are the ones that are making policies that the governments are actually pushing out to us. So I think this documentary, which actually took about 10 years to make, this documentary is very, very powerful, and it's great to see so many people come out to something like this. Did you want to say something?